So this is going to be a decently complicated conversation, but we have some big updates on how the Montreal Canadiens may have just cucked the Toronto Maple Leafs. Hey, pull out that chair on the side of the hotel room. That's your spot today, Toronto, because today we are talking about Michael Hage out of the University of Michigan Wolverines in the NCAA. One of the best prospects in the National Hockey League today at 19 years of age. This season, Michael Hage has scored 51 points in 38 Wolverines college games. And he added on top of that 2 points per game for Team Canada at the World Juniors. 15 points, 7 games played. He was a right-hand man to Gavin McKenna. And Michael Hage, as a lanky two-way center with some very high productive goal scoring and point producing, this is a guy that Montreal Canadiens fans can and should be excited for. Long-term, this guy could be the second-line center. Who knows? Michael Hage, however, was drafted by the Canadiens back in the 2024 NHL Entry Draft, 21st overall. And this is where we get into the cuckery of the entire situation here, because this is the order of 2024's draft. Michael Hage went 21st, Igor Shurin went to Nashville at 22, Stian Soderberg went 23rd to Anaheim, followed by Utah, Boston, LA, Chicago, Calgary, Dallas, New York, and then you had the Toronto Maple Leafs selecting Ben Danford with their 31st overall pick. But here's the thing. What if I told you that if Toronto and Brad Treliving got what they wanted, Michael Hage would have been a Leaf? Let's take a look at the conversation posted out there by Keith Pelley, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment President. Now, this press conference was an entire conversation in and of itself. Like, this is absolutely a thing that we can dive into, but honestly, I don't care about the Leafs too much, so I really don't want to. Steve Dangle has an entire breakdown on the Keith Pelley thing on his podcast, so you could go out there and watch that. But this is all coming, of course, after the firing of Brad Treliving at the hands of the Maple Leafs. Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment President Keith Pelley not only praised the rebuild of the Montreal Canadiens, but he also mentioned Michael Hage by name. You don't see that every day from a historical and divisional rival. Yes, that is true. Keith Pelley straight up said that, yeah, that Michael Hage guy, he's pretty great. And the Montreal Canadiens, they've been doing a pretty great job in this entire rebuilding thing. Here's another tweet over here. Keith Pelley mentioned that Michael Hage is stirring up Knies and Habs discussion again, because how else would he know who Hage is? He also brought up Engstrom, Reinbacher, Fowler, and Slavkovsky. Keith Pelley, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment President, seems to have a good grasp of Buffalo's prospect pool as well. What a puck knower. So, all of a sudden, once the Maple Leafs fire their GM, and MLSE's president goes out there in a press conference and speaks about the matter, we have ourselves some glazing of the Habs, and in particular some of the prospects that they got. But just you wait, because it gets even crazier when you acknowledge this note too. The Maple Leafs wanted to draft Michael Hage in 2024. They were slated to draft at 23rd overall, while Montreal was set to draft at 26th. Montreal jumped up to 21st overall to pick ahead of Toronto, and they nabbed Hage. The Leafs then traded down to 31st and picked up Ben Danford. Now, Marco D'Amico is, of course, the senior editor for RG. He does stuff for Star and D'Amico, not to mention TSN 690, CBC Global, and CTV. Primarily, though, he's on BPM. Marco D'Amico is one of the more connected guys in the Montreal beat, so if he's going out there and saying that, yeah, The Montreal Canadiens, they leapfrogged the Toronto Maple Leafs in the draft that year just so they could take Michael Hage before Toronto ended up doing so. I'm going to go out there and believe it. Now, for reference, let's go over to that 2024 NHL Entry Draft and just see the picks, see the guys that were drafted, and see how everything worked themselves out. Toronto was indeed slated to draft in the 23rd overall spot, but they traded down to the Anaheim Ducks in order to get another second-round pick. Meanwhile, this 26th overall pick once belonged to the Montreal Canadiens. It was Winnipeg's first that was sent over to the Habs in the Sean Monahan trade. But then, the Canadiens acquired the 21st overall pick from the LA Kings in exchange for this 26th overall pick, as well as a 2nd and a 7th. So the price to move from 26 to 21 was pretty steep. A 2nd and a 7th in order to move up 5 spots. But you were able to nab yourself Michael Hage, a guy that if you didn't make this trade, he probably would have been gone at this 23rd overall spot. Hage also grew up in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. He's an Ontario guy. Even though it was heavily documented that his family were Habs fans and there's a lot to like there, Hage technically would have been at home if he went over to Toronto as well. And the fact that Keith Pelley is literally going out there and mentioning Hage specifically, like, yeah, this is a guy that is so good, and this is also a guy that 2 years ago we wanted to draft. It does put a smile on my face as a Montreal Canadiens fan, doesn't it? It probably does to you as well. Meanwhile, Michael Hage goes out there on Team Canada, and he pretty much puts the entire nation on his back. Him and Gavin McKenna essentially were the top dogs for point production, and Zane Parekh on the back end. Lots to like out of these top guys. Lots to dislike, though, out of the attitude and the personality, you can say, that Team Canada brought to the World Juniors this season. It's one of these things where it's like, yeah, I'm kinda not surprised to see them lose out in the way that they did. But that's neither here nor there. One entire tournament's worth of a team performance is not going to reflect on one individual player that much. And for Michael Hage, by all accounts, it seems like this guy does have a pretty good attitude as a center, a leader, a scorer. And the Montreal Canadiens are hoping that they can see that through with their own team in the future. So, with all that said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Keith Pelley going out there and mentioning Michael Hage by name, praising the Montreal Canadiens rebuild during the press conference wherein he was speaking about firing Brad Treliving? What are your thoughts on Toronto wanting to have drafted Michael Hage back in 2024, only to get cucked by the Canadiens as they leapfrogged them and went up 2 spots? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.